Greetings fellow traders, this is Max and welcome to my Sunday market analysis where I'm going to analyze the market and share with you my top trades for the upcoming week. And I have 10 trades here marked on my watch list I am interested in, and the first one is going to be CAT CHF. This trade is going to be a short trade, as you see on the weekly chart when I do my top-down analysis. So I'm going to go from the highest time frame to the lowest time frame and see what kind of price action I get there. By that, I can make sure that the momentum is still the correct one, or the one I'm looking for potential trades, or just figure out the potential trade. And in this case, it is going to be a short trade. We are still in a downtrend, as we see on the weekly. We haven't created new highs. We are still creating new lows. So the first one is going to be a short trade. So what we see here, we had this very long or huge accumulation zone and we broke out of it. And now I am waiting for this retest that probably happened last week already, but this is not a this was not a retest I was able to get into this trade. The reason is it's not the price action that I'm looking for, and I'm waiting a little more patiently for a better entry, for a different price action here, because what we see here is that the price has moved fairly strongly to the downside already. So I couldn't get the best entry here, but what it's forming on the daily chart is some kind of, you would call it bearish flag formation. Now, this is just a formation that you'd have to use a trend line for in order to trade, which is not what I do. Because even if price breaks out of this trend line here, what you very often see is that then price reverses to the zone where the masses very often put their stop losses in, and this is called a stop run or liquidity run. And when the price returns to this area, your stop loss gets triggered because you probably put it there, and this is what I want to avoid. So in order for me to get now into this trade is I just want to wait for a lower high here, which is gonna then give me my entry signal to open a short position and sell CAT CHF to the downside, with the first profit target being in this area here, which is still support. So that would be my first take profit. It's a simple break and retest trade, and right now the 4-hour chart is still kind of bullish, even though we are creating here a head and shoulders pattern, which is a reversal pattern. What I could do is wait for a breakout here, then a retest, and then sell to the downside already in this zone. However, this is not going to give me a really great risk reward. I mean, it is great. It's still a 1 to 3. Maybe I trade it if the price action is correct, but the most optimal for me would be to just with this doji candle here, wait for a lower high and then enter here in the beginning of next week around this zone, or maybe here, depending on where the price wants to go, to then sell. Maybe we are also going to see a new liquidity sweep here around this round psychological level and the formerly support area, which is now becoming resistance. So this would be a really great indicator that the sellers are still in control for this pair. Next trade is going to be on CAT JPY. On the weekly chart again, we are creating new lows, haven't gotten any shift of structure here, so the price hasn't created a new high. What it did on the weekly chart here is it left this really huge wick, which might get filled next week. That could happen. So why I'm now interested in this trade is when the structure shifts. So we have a new daily candle that closes below this area, or the optimal area would actually be around here. If it closes there, then I want to see a pullback, then enter on this pullback, probably forming some sort of head and shoulders pattern here. As you see, you have the left shoulder, you have the head, and then you have the right shoulder. And I would like to get in on the right shoulder here if it forms, and then it's just going to be also a very simple break and retest trade to the downside. But right now we are above this former resistance area, so I want to wait for price to break this again, retest it, and confirm that it's now resistance to then sell CAT JPY. On the 4-hour time frame on CAT JPY, you can actually see that it's also forming kind of a head and shoulders pattern here, which is now, which I'm pretty much anticipating now for the right shoulder. So a break of this head and shoulders pattern here, a retest of this neckline, and then open my sell position to sell CAD JPY. So also a bearish structure on the 4 hour, bearish structure, well, not really bearish structure yet, but soon on the daily chart. And on the weekly, it looks like this was just a retest and a liquidity sweep, and now we are going lower. But you have to be patient, wait for your entry, wait for the price action that you want to see. If you do not get the price action that you want to see, just leave the trade. It's not worth if you take this loss then just because you didn't stick to your plan. Next trade is going to be on Euro AUD for me. So on the weekly, we see that we are still in a really strong uptrend. However, we had a couple of weeks where the price was a little bit ranging. On the daily chart, we see that we are kind of creating new lows here, which is like a bullish flag formation. So you have the bearish flag and this, for example, the bullish flag, which occurs in an uptrend. This is still not the price action that I want to see. I want to see it go down to this resistance area here, see it turning into support, sweep some of the liquidity sitting around here, stop losses, limit orders, whatever, and then give me my entry signal to then buy your AUD. Probably gonna take a couple days, maybe price is gonna take off without getting back into the zone. Then it is what it is. I'm not going to chase the price and open a buy position here prematurely to then hope that the price is just gonna go up. So you have to be patient. As I said before, stick to your plan. Next pair will be Euro CAD. On the weekly chart, we also see here that we are in an uptrend. We created a new high. I want to wait for the retest of this area here, which is a resistance area, or was a resistance area, and now I want to see it turn into support. It's also a round psychological level, as you see here, 1.52. On the daily chart, you see that there's also this potential bullish flag forming, but as with your AUD, I just want to wait for price to get back to the zone here, maybe sweep some of the liquidity, give me my entry signal to then buy Euro CAD, but it's just going to take a few more couple days. So I am going to be patient for this week. My next top trade is on Euro CHF. What we see on the weekly here is that we broke the structure. We had a retest here. If you invert the scale, which is something that I like to do in order to just get a different view on the price action, you see this weekly head and shoulders pattern here. You have the left shoulder, you have the head, and you have the right shoulder. Broke the neckline on the weekly. Now we are retesting this neckline here, or we have retested it already, rejecting even the 50 EMA on the weekly. Now when we go to the daily, so on the weekly it's like a inverse head and shoulders. What we see here is that we had the retest. We even had a little liquidity sweep, almost bounced off the 50 EMA. Now, since it's the beginning of the week, I want to wait for a London session to start and to open. So what I want to see is kind of creating, or price creating, a higher low here with my entry signal to then buy Euro CHF. So I'm going to be patient. I'm not going to get in right away when the market opens. I just want to see a little higher low forming here to then buy Euro CHF. Also a fairly simple break and retest trade. I would consider it really strong because we have this inverse head and shoulders on the weekly chart, which is indicating a price reversal, or it's just a reversal pattern in general. So higher low and then buy Euro CHF. Next top pair is going to be Euro GBP. On the weekly chart, it looks really mixed. Not really created a new high. Also no new low. We had this weekly break here. Now we had we have this hammer weekly here, which was kind of a retest and a liquidity sweep below this support and resistance area and round psychological level as well. If we go to the daily, we see this gigantic kind of morning star candle formation forming here, even below, as I said before, this round psychological level, sweeping some of the liquidity. But I'm not gonna get in right away into this trade. I just want to wait for the higher low here as well. Maybe even retesting the zone one more time, and then I could already get my entry maybe only on Tuesday, maybe already on Monday with the higher low and my entry signal to then buy Euro GBP. So also basic break and retest trade, but this price action is really strong. We had this morning star formation, kind of the daily engulfing candle. Now I want to wait for the retracement, the pullback after this bullish move here to then buy. Next pair for this week, EURUSD. On the weekly chart, break and the retest almost occurred. We haven't really had the retest yet, so still have to be patient and wait for my alarm to get triggered. Also kind of this bullish flag formation here, but I want to wait for price to come down to this round psychological 1.07, 1.07 price level, sweep some of the liquidity below here to then give me my entry signal and then buy EURUSD. Probably going to take a couple more days, but this is my trading plan for EURUSD. Patience is very key in trading. You should never rush your trade and you should always stick to your plan. My next top pair, GBP CAD. On the weekly chart, we see we created a new high here. So we are still in an uptrend on the weekly, definitely. We broke through a former resistance zone. Now it's potentially become a support. As we see here, we even had a retest with a small liquidity sweep here, and now this very strong bullish engulfing candlestick, which is engulfing the last 3 days. What I want to see here now is still kind of a higher low. That would be great. However, if price breaks above this area already, then I want to see or want to wait for a really small retest of this price level here, because if you invert the scale again, you can see that this is also a head and shoulders pattern, which is a reversal pattern. If you go on the even in another lower time frame, say the 4 hour or the 1 hour, you can see here that we have the neckline, and if it breaks this neckline and then retests it so it becomes resistance, then it's going to be a high probability trade for my strategy to then buy GBP CAD. But again, you have to be patient. My favorite would be if I get a stronger retracement here with a great entry signal to then buy GBP CAD. Next pair for this week is GBP JPY. On the weekly chart, it still looks kind of mixed. I have to be honest. We have created this low here, but we broke the structure here on the weekly, even closing last week's candlestick with this enormous gigantic wick, which is very likely to get filled next week, because this is what price likes to do. If I go to the daily chart, we also see that we are creating new highs, no new lows. We haven't closed below here, so this is a good sign. This is also around this resistance area, which is now potentially turning into support. So what I want to wait for now is essentially what would be optimal, a small break and small retest to then buy to the upside, or maybe even a neutral day with then the shifter structure so that I can enter this position GBP JPY. However, I'm gonna observe price action really carefully here. I even set an alarm to wait for price to break this zone here. Not sure if I'm going to actually wait for a small retest, because if I get my entry signal here, like a morning star or an engulfing candlestick, maybe similar, a similar price action as we had here. Not exactly like this. I wouldn't enter, I would check on the lower time frame. But since we are rejecting the 50 EMA here, this looks very likely to be a good long opportunity. But as I said, I'm going to be patient. I'm going to observe the price, see what it's doing, to then decide whether I want to open a long position here or not. The next and last pair is NZD USD. Now, I shared in my free Telegram channel last week that I opened a long position here on NZD USD following a retest of this inverse head and shoulders pattern here. Right now, the price action is not looking good for this trade so far. The idea was that we had a head and shoulders pattern here on the daily chart. We broke it and we retested it, and I got my entry. So I entered on a really bullish push, which then pretty much reversed immediately. And now what we see here is that we, even on the 4 hour, have this kind of head and shoulders forming, which, as you know, is a either reversal pattern, or in this context it also can be a continuation pattern. So my stop loss is still sitting below here. That could get hit next week by a possible liquidity run, and then price might reverse or just stop me out and then move to the downside. This is really not good looking for this trade. However, as long as the stop hasn't been hit, I'm still going to be in this trade. Alternatively, you could trade a break and retest, but I am not going to do this because for me it's still a bullish structure, so I do not want to open a sell position here. Optimal case now would be that we break this resistance area here, retest it, and then finally have the move to the upside as I wanted. Actually, great trade setup for me, just really unlucky price action, but it is what it is. You do not win every trade in trading. It's just important to stick to your strategy and your plan. There's going to be days where you're just going to have a losing streak, or weeks depending on how you trade. For me, I prefer to trade those big swings that the price is having. So here, for example, it would be a long swing position. So I'm going to hold it for a couple days to then hit my take profit. But as of right now, it is really not looking optimal for this trade. So this might be a stop out. However, as I analyzed before, there are really great additional trades that I can then take for the week. But as long as this trade is not completed, I am not really considering any of the other trades. I have more pairs on my watch list where I set certain alarms, so I analyze the price action as well, but I'm still waiting for price to do a significant move, triggering my alarm, and then I'm going to plan my entry on those pairs. So those are the ones I am not actively monitoring unless there's one of my alarms getting triggered. If you want to get notified whenever there's a new trade setup that I'm interested in or that I'm looking for, you can just join my free Telegram channel. I'm going to put the link for it into the video description. You will also find the link to my Instagram and my TikTok there. And if you have any questions, just let me know in the comments and I will try to answer your questions. Thank you for watching, everyone. I hope you're going to have a successful trading week. Remember to manage your risk properly, and see you next Sunday.